of the world, it's the first time, if you see the entire world population, the number of obese people now for the first time in history of the world is the number of obese people are more than the number of underweight people. Can you imagine that? So the entire world is becoming heavier. Okay. In fact, the obese people are outnumbering the underweight people. Okay. Now you would believe that, oh, there's so much food, that's a good thing, because that means the world is growing. We are economically stronger. We have a term for this: overfed and undernourished. Meaning we're feeding ourselves obviously more, but the nourishment is actually going down. So when the nourishment goes down, the diseases go up. And that is a relation of obesity and disease. So what I want you to understand for the first time is the amount of fat cells you have in your body and how much fat is inside your fat cells is the single most determining factor for whether you will fall sick, and second, whether you will survive that illness. So two things: whether you will fall sick and whether you will survive that illness. What does that mean? The chances for getting COVID complications directly link to how much fat you have in your tissue. Okay, you get what I'm saying on this? So now, how do I measure how much fat I have in my system? One crude method is something called as body mass index. Body mass index. Okay. Now, body mass index basically means you put your height and put your weight on Google. There's a calculator which is available called as BMI calculator. Put that weight and height and you'll get a number. Okay. Now, all Western literature, all literature outside India will say that you should actually have a BMI, okay, under 25. That's what the international literature would say. If you're under 25, then you're healthy, is what the Western world says. For India, unfortunately, there's a different guideline. For India, now we say, if you are only below 23 BMI, then you are healthy. Now tell me honestly, how many of us are BMI 23? Not many. So how many of us will fall sick with COVID and develop complications? Quite a few, because we are having a BMI of more than 23. So the first thing all of you should do as a start point, is going to be that you will actually calculate your BMI. That's the first thing I want all of you to do. Second thing I want all of you to do: stand up in the morning after you use the washroom, take a measuring inch tape, put it around your belly at the umbilicus level and calculate how much is your width, your circumference of your abdomen. You will be shocked. Okay. The bigger your waistline, the lesser your lifeline. And again, all data tells us that. Okay. So don't do anything else. Just measure abdominal circumference. This is the abdomen fat is directly an indicator of how much fat you have inside your heart. All of you know about angiography and angioplasties, and why is that done? Because you have narrowing of the arteries, right, which are supplying the heart. Obviously we are not going to get angiographies so easily, right? So what is a marker? Simple marker, at home marker for how much fat you have and how much cholesterol and narrowing you have of your coronary arteries. Simple, your abdominal circumference. So basically all people who are having complications of COVID, many of them are having a high abdominal circumference. Imagine. And they're blaming the government. They're blaming the oxygen is not there. They're blaming the bed is not there. That's not, you should be blaming yourself. And why were you even there in a situation where you had such a big abdomen and you were going on with life thinking nothing is going to happen, and a disease happens and it crushes you and you blame the government? And let me give you something. I got COVID as well. Last year. But fortunately, COVID hit me when my BMI was 22. That was the time COVID hit me. So COVID did not find a home inside me because I was already healthy. I was not having too much of fat. So what did COVID virus do? It left me without giving me any symptom. The only symptom I got was a bit of loss of taste for 12 hours. That's the only thing. In the night, I did not have a good taste for my dinner. In the morning when I had breakfast, I had good taste. So that was my COVID. It's a different unfortunate point that I passed it on to my father, who has a high abdominal circumference, who had a higher BMI, and the same virus to him put him into the hospital, into the ICU. He survived. But what I'm trying to say is the same virus to me and to him, why is it going to be different? You might say, oh, that's the age. It's not the age. It's how healthy you are from inside. You can be 60 years old and have a low BMI and your virus will still not hit you. So what I want you to know is two things. BMI and abdominal circumference is the classical marker I want you to start with. That's the first thing I want you to do. Okay. Now you might say that, okay, if I have fat in my tissue, how can I remove that fat? The best way to do that is intermittent fasting, which is what we are going to talk about today. Now let me give you this. For those who are watching me for the first time, remember that fat in your diet, the cholesterol in your diet is not what is getting deposited on your abdomen. It's not the same fat. That's the first myth I want you to break. What is the fat inside you is not the fat in your diet. So what is happening? The carbohydrates in your diet are becoming the fat in your abdomen. So there's a conversion happening, a biochemical conversion happening. And the carbohydrate that is really getting converted into this fat is what is called as refined carbohydrates. What do you mean by refined carbohydrates? See this now. Let's say this is the carbohydrate. Okay. Now every carbohydrate is obviously a chain of glucose molecules. There's some fructose molecules, some galactose molecules. Ultimately, they're sugar molecules linked together within a chain. You take that inside. The body breaks down that chain. And then what is? The sugar is released in your blood. Now you might say the sugar is good. I'm not denying that. Sugar is important for making energy in your system. But you know what is the problem? Let's say in the morning at 8 a.m. you had breakfast. So let's assume 100 units of sugar have come into your system because you had what? You had carbohydrates in your breakfast. Okay, so 100 units of sugar molecules come in. In the night, you have not had anything to eat, so your system is hungry, right? You want to make energy, so that 100 units of sugar is coming inside, and then you use it for energy production. So you're happy that, okay, your body has got energy. What happens? That 100 units of energy which you are making is enough for 7, 8, 9 hours. Okay, but do you wait for 7, 8, 9 hours after your breakfast to have your second meal? No. Maybe you have a mid-morning snack. Maybe you have a mid-morning snack. Got this? Maybe you have then a cup of tea with sugar and milk. What is milk? Carbohydrates. What is sugar? Carbohydrates. So ultimately you have carbohydrates. So then at 11 a.m. you get 50 units of more energy. Then you have lunch, 100 units of more energy. Then you have mid-evening snack. Then you have a night snack, night dinner, and then you have maybe a bed tea or maybe some milk before you go to sleep. So do you realize every time you have something, Indian diet is full of carbohydrates. So you're getting too much energy into your system, which you don't require. Your body needs X amount of energy and you're giving it 5x amount of energy. So what is going to happen with the extra energy which is coming inside? The body says, oh, let me store it somewhere. There's a bank inside your system, which is like your bank locker. Like, so what happens when you have extra cash? Would you not want to put it in the locker? Same way, when you have extra energy with repeated eating of carbohydrates, you're going to store it. But the storage is not in a carbohydrate form. The storage is in the form of fat. So now do you understand this? So the reason why all of us are becoming fatter every day, and especially around the belly is where the locker is. That is where the deposition is happening. One more locker you have is the liver. So you are getting fat in the liver, and this is then typically fatty liver. Such a common condition. So many of you who actually have a big abdomen also have fatty liver. The same fat is going to go into your heart vessels. So your heart vessels are going to narrow. The same fat is going to go into your brain vessels. So your brain arteries become narrow. So then your blood supply is not going to your brain so much. So now do you realize why do you get this fogging? You know, something called brain fog. So many times you get up in the morning and say, I'm not feeling good. I'm just feeling very drowsy and dizzy, and I'm feeling fogging of my head. That's because of the blood supply not going properly. What if you start getting a bit of chest problems, a bit of angina, pain, you feel breathless after walking a few steps? What's happening? The blood supply is not good. In fact, the blood supply is not good even to your muscles. So your muscles don't work very well. So when you walk, you get a lot of pain in your legs. You get fatigue. Is that not such a common problem? So everything is because of too much fat accumulating inside your blood vessels. Obviously, I'm oversimplifying things, but I just want to make it simple enough for you to understand. So what I want you to understand for first of and for all is the entire problem is too frequent eating. And every time you eat, you're putting in some kind of refined carbohydrates. What do you mean by refined carbohydrates? I'll give you some examples. Bread is a refined carbohydrate. Remember this. All your refined flour, okay, all your rotis and parothas and chapatis and naans and tandoori rotis, all of them are refined carbs. Okay, now you see any thali in an Indian restaurant or even in your house, you'll have maybe 70% of your thali filled with rotis and rice. White rice is again a very bad problem. It's refined carbohydrates. Okay, so what I want you to understand is basically you're going to have a lot of the refined carbohydrates. How much sabjis and vegetables do you have in your thali? Hardly anything. Maybe one dal and one dahi, right? Which is what, 30% of your thali? So do you realize 70% of your thali on an average Indian meal is carbohydrates, and that too refined carbohydrates. Who has brown rice? Not many people. Who has those complex carbohydrate rotis like jawar and bajri and ragi and millets? No, we don't have that, right? Usually. So when you have refined carbohydrates, the entire epidemic of fat deposition is happening. You get what I'm saying? So the entire reason for obesity right now in the world is only two: eating too frequently, and whenever you eat, you have a lot of refined carbohydrates. Remember, milk is a very, very big source of carbohydrates. So for people who are obese, we don't want them to consume milk. We are happier with milk products like dahi and paneer, though they are also not very healthy, but in comparison to milk, they are healthier because there's a fermentation process happening, and fermented milk products are much better than an actual milk product. Now, in fact, the milk that all of us will have is animal milk. We don't take human milk, right? And this is funny, and I want all of you to know this, that animal milk is for the baby animal, right? Like a cow is going to make milk for the calf, and the calf is so weak, and nature wants that calf to become fatter, right, so that it survives. And that is why the cow milk and any animal milk is destined and is designed in a way which makes you fat, because it's supposed to do that in nature. It's supposed to fatten up a calf. So it's good for a small baby to have that, right? But when you start having that as an adult, would you not also become fat? So it's a very big myth that I see a lot of even pregnant females for that matter, because you want in pregnancy people to gain weight, right? So a lot of milk is fed. The problem is that's not a healthy way to become fat. See, I can start becoming fat, but am I becoming healthy? No, in fact, fatter people on an average are unhealthier. Remember this? Now, so first thing is we really want to reduce the milk intake. We want to introduce complex carbohydrates, which means what? Okay, switch. There's something called switching. Switch white rice to brown rice. I like brown rice because it's got fiber. Fiber is a very healthy carbohydrate. So anything which has more fiber is going to be labeled as complex carbohydrates and healthy carbohydrates. All right. Okay. Second is, you want to have bread, switch the bread to maybe a brown bread or whole wheat bread. Okay. Preferably don't have bread at all. You get what I'm saying? Okay. Hear me out on this. Whenever you switch like this, you switch from juices to intact fruits. Never have juices. Juices are devoid of all fiber. So obviously there's no point in having that. Start having millets as a source of your carbohydrates. So you can have ragi, you can have bajra, you can have maybe oats, you can have dalia, which is buckwheat, right? These are all complex carbohydrates because they have a lot of fiber attached to it. And even if you have these, remember to put that only as maximum 30% of your thali. Okay, the 70% should be vegetables and salads. That is where the real meal happens. The real meal is never in rotis and rice. Even if you have brown rice and rotis and complex carbohydrates, restrict that to 30% to 40%. A rest should be vegetables. Now, it's very commonly wrongly said and thought of as salad is a side dish. It's not a side dish, it's the main dish. Remember, salad is the main dish. Unfortunately, in India, we have that as like a small bowl next to the main thali. But that salad is the main thali, honestly. And you might say that's so boring. No, it's not boring. You can really put a lot of flavor into salads. I like to have something called as rainbow salads. Rainbow salads means have as many colors as possible in your salads. Okay, you can. I love purple cabbage, for example. Okay, that's the see. I don't have it for the cabbage part. I have it for the purple part. So I have finished my purple part of that salad. So one color I've got. Put carrots. That's the red color you got. Maybe you put tomatoes. So you again got a red color there. You can put broccoli. That's the green component. You can put mushrooms, that's the white brown component coming there. You can put beans, the green coming there. You can put rajma and chana and black chana. So sprouts, brown. So do you realize one thing? Whatever I've told you are all vegetarian foods, raw foods, sauteed foods. You can put coconut oil to saute them. It's very good. Don't use refined oils to saute them. Okay, you can saute them in ghee as well. Okay, don't be afraid of fats. Problem is all of us are afraid of fats. It's called fat phobia because we have said, okay, oh, if I have this butter, it'll make me fat. Butter is not making you fat, honestly. What's really making you fat is the refined carbohydrates and sugar. Okay, and that sugar is in so many forms. Almost all your packaged foods have sugar in some form. In fact, even your artificial sweeteners are equally bad. So don't switch normal sugars to artificial sugars. Don't even switch it to honey. That's again bad. People say honey is a natural thing. It's not refined sugar. Sugar is sugar. In whatever form you take it, it's always, if you're already obese, that's adding to the energy load in your system. You're already full of energy inside. Why do you want more? Is it not better to use what you have inside? So see what happens. I'll give you the example of a lockdown. Let's assume in the lockdown, all your businesses are shut. No new money is coming into your shop. So what is a shopkeeper going to do? He say, oh, I have deposited so much money in my locker. Let me take it out and use that because I have stored it. Same example. During intermittent fasting, what would you do? What is intermittent fasting? In intermittent fasting, you fast for let's assume 16 hours in a day. So 2/3 of the day. So night may you have maybe early dinner. Okay, maybe at about 7 p.m. or something. You have a late breakfast or you directly have lunch. So in that fasting time, think of it as a lockdown. But there's no money coming in, meaning there is no sugar coming in. There's no energy coming in from outside. So what is the body going to do? Body says, oh, I've got so much in my locker. What is the locker? The abdomen, the liver fat, the heart vessels fat, the brain vessel fat. You get this? So will you not use that for energy production? See, body is very smart. It will not die. It will use resources which you have inside and you're already obese. You will not believe what I'm going to tell you now. You know how many calories you have right now inside you stored? Almost 2 lakh calories. Can you even imagine that? That is what is already stored inside us. So would you not want to use that? So that's beautiful, right? So then I'll tell you my journey. So what happened was I was obviously obese at one point of time. I had a body mass index of about 30 BMI and my weight was about 82 kilograms. I'm talking about 1 year back. Today you can see me, right? From whatever form you can see me. Do I look 82 kilos? I'm 58 kilos, right? So that means what's happened? I've done intermittent fasting. So what did I do? I restricted my eating time to within 8 hours, for example. There are various regimens of intermittent fasting. One is called 16-8, where 16 hours of fasting and 8 hours of eating. In that 8 hours, again, you don't eat frequently. In that 8 hours, I was eating 2 meals. And in those 2 meals, I was not having refined carbohydrates. And I left sugar. In fact, whenever I have tea, I make sure that the amount of milk I have in that is less, so the water part is more, and I don't put sugar. Obviously, it takes time to get used to that taste because all of us have been brought up with a bit of sugar inside the tea, right? So in the initial 1 or 2 weeks, I found it a bit difficult. For 2 weeks, I had a bit of headache when I started doing intermittent fasting. That headache was not because my body wants sugar from outside. This headache is because my body has a habit of having 6 meals in a day. That a bit of tea, a bit of snack, a bit of this. So that's your de-addiction process. You understand this word, de-addiction? All of us are food addicts and tea addicts and coffee addicts. So if you leave coffee for one day, you'll feel weird that, oh, I don't feel good about the day today, because your body is wired to do that, right? So for the first 2 weeks, you will feel a bit odd, but then magic comes in the third week, where you surprisingly find that hunger is not there. Why? Why would hunger not be there? Because you're making energy from inside. So rather than taking energy from outside, are you not self-reliant from inside? So your fat comes out of your liver. In fact, that happened to me. I had grade 2 fatty liver, which always used to come on ultrasound, and my doctor used to tell me that कुछ नहीं, सबको होता है, छोड़ दो. Okay, छोड़ दो कैसे छोड़ दो? Then I did intermittent fasting. All that fat went away, and I got a repeat ultrasound, and there's no fat, absolutely zero fat in my liver on ultrasound. So I am assuming that all my heart blood vessels have also been cleared out of all the cholesterol. Is it not a natural way to do an angioplasty and a stenting of those vessels? You know, either you do it medically by cleaning out those arteries with a wire, or you do it by intermittent fasting and releasing all that stuff. Is it not such a beautiful thing to even think about? That my chances of heart disease are going to drastically reduce. My chances of paralysis are going to drastically reduce. And I'll tell you something. Fatty liver right now in India is the most common cause of liver failure and the most common cause of liver transplantation. Fatty liver, do you know this? And where is that fatty liver coming from? It is basically going to come from the sugar in your diet. So most people think that the liver is bad in people because of alcohol. That's called alcoholic liver disease. Now there's a fatty liver disease which is non-alcoholic. So right now India is suffering not because of alcohol so much, it's because of fat in the liver. You ask any liver transplant surgeon, he says most of my people are people who have not touched alcohol, but they've got fatty liver and their liver has collapsed. So don't take fatty liver lightly. In fact, I'll tell you something again. If you have fatty liver, you have a huge chance of getting diabetes in the near future. How big a statement is that? In fact, if I were to tell you and predict whether you're going to become diabetic in the next 10 years, you know what I will do? I'll get an ultrasound and see if you have fatty liver. If you have fatty liver, I'll say, oh, you have a huge chance of becoming diabetic. So that fat in the liver is a direct predictor of diabetes in the future. So don't take it lightly. If you have a test called as HbA1c, again, I want all of you to do it. HbA1c. If your HbA1c is above 5.7, then again, you're already on the path of diabetes. So don't look at sugar levels. People say, oh, my fasting sugar is okay, I'm okay. No. Look at HbA1c. That's a better marker. Look at fatty liver. That's a better marker. Also look at your lipid profile. Again, I'll tell you something which is brilliant here. In fact, in lipid profile, when your blood test is done, most of you will see that, oh, doctor, my cholesterol is high. That's a wrong thing to see. Don't see cholesterol. Don't even see LDL. Because people say LDL is bad cholesterol. Let me look at that. No. LDL cholesterol is not the main reason for heart attacks. It's a minor reason for heart attacks. So what is the major reason for heart attacks? Is something called as triglyceride to HDL ratio. In your blood test, there's a triglyceride and there's a HDL. Look at the ratio between that. If your triglyceride to HDL ratio is high, ideally it should be 1:1. Ideally, if it's 1:1, then you are healthy. Then it's You take it from me, you have very less chance of getting a heart attack. So don't look at cholesterol, don't look at LDL, only look at triglyceride and HDL. So I've told you 3 tests that all of you should do when you start intermittent fasting. Do an ultrasound of the abdomen to check for fatty liver, HbA1c do, calculate your BMI I told you, measure your abdominal circumference I told you, and do a triglyceride to HDL ratio. 5 things I want you to start with. So do all 5 and then you start intermittent fasting. Okay, I guarantee within 3 months all these numbers will change. 3 months. I'm just asking for 3 months. Okay, so now that you got this, most people say, sir, how do I get motivation? When I feel hunger, I become mad. Okay, you know what? It is de-addiction happening. Craving is a good thing. Craving strengthens your mind. See, craving is always there for bad things. Do you ever crave for a broccoli? Do you ever crave for cauliflower? We crave for pizza and pasta and meetha. You know why we crave for sweets? Because when you have sweets inside, it hits something, it releases a chemical in your brain called as dopamine, which gives you this happy feeling. So you're addicted not to the sweets, but to that happy, stress-free feeling that you get when you eat chocolates and you eat something sweet and gulab jamuns and jalebis. But that is a dopamine hit and a dopamine release. But that dopamine effect is going to be there for 15-20 minutes, right? And then it goes away. No? So what have you achieved by giving into that craving? Nothing. Just 15 minutes of maybe a bit of relief. And then you know what happens? Then next day you feel like having it again. Again you have dopamine release. So you become addicted. You almost like a smoker now. So most people who have tea 6 times in a day are not having it for the tea. They're having it for the sugar in the tea. Remember this. So that is the addiction coming in. Okay. So then how do you do intermittent fasting? Okay. I'll tell you something. The greatest investment you can have in life is yourself. That is where the entire investment should go. I'm so thankful that I found intermittent fasting before COVID hit me. Otherwise, I shudder to think what would have happened. आज COVID के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं, right? Maybe when the COVID goes away after 2 years and 3 years, maybe fat people get a heart attack. They'll end up in the ICU, struggling for life. Do you want to be like that? Do you want to be a person who struggles to breathe? No, right? So skip your refined carbohydrates, skip your sugars. Even your jaggery is bad. That's again sugar. All obese people should stop all forms of sugar. There's nothing like a healthy sugar. Let me be very clear. Any nutritionist who tells you that these are healthy forms of sugar is not telling the correct truth. Because all forms of sugar, see, when jaggery comes in, what happens? Is it not broken again into the same sugar molecules? So whether you have white rice or gulab jamun or jaggery or honey, everything inside is sugar, ultimately becoming fat in your locker. So please don't think that all these, you know, who makes these stupid advices on internet? People who are themselves fat. How many dietitians do you know who are fat themselves? What if I was fat? Do I have any right to tell you to start becoming thin? No. It's like a smoker telling other people stop smoking. No. I first lost weight myself, proved it to myself, and then only I had the qualification to tell it to you. We should always avoid artificial sugars as well. All your stevias and monk fruits and all these will still release dopamine in your brain. So don't think those are good. No, those are not good. I want you to avoid that as well. Okay, so be away from all these. See, point is, you know, who again advocates all these stevias and all that? Stevia companies who says, oh, Diet Coke, for example, is equally bad. It may have 0 calories, but it's very, very bad. It's 100 times better to have 200 calories of broccoli versus 0 calories from a Diet Coke. Because when you have artificial sweeteners, you know what happens? Artificial sweeteners will hit your gut bacteria, will damage your gut bacteria. In fact, a lot of studies have come where your gut bacteria determines your overall body health. In fact, there's no way to measure gut bacteria, but we just assume that fat people have bad gut bacteria. In fact, they did a trial where they removed bacteria from a fat mouse, from the intestine of the fat mouse, and imagine injected it, put it into a thin mouse, just the bacteria. With the same feed, with the same meals, what happened? The thin mouse became fat, just with that bacteria, imagine. So there are now bacteria colonies inside your tummy, which determine how obese you are. Stevia and all these artificial sweeteners will damage your gut bacteria. Sugar damages your gut bacteria. Animal foods, all forms of animal foods, let that be milk, eggs, let that be processed meats, anything and everything damages the gut bacteria. The only thing which improves your gut bacteria is fiber. And where does fiber come from? The rainbow diet that I told you about. The purple part, the purple cabbage, the purple part is because of something called as anthocyanins. Anthocyanins are very good as an antioxidants, by the way. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is go into a lot of this vegetable plant-based foods because it gives you fibers and vitamin C. Okay, now how do you do intermittent fasting? Dates, not good. I told you all forms of sugar are bad for an obese person. See, I'm thin now. My BMI right now is 21. So I can occasionally have dates, for example. Dates are supposed to be more healthier than what? Than a gulab jamun. But is dates healthy for an obese person? No. If you already have a high BMI, why to take dates? You can have it once you lose weight. Then you can have it occasionally. Same thing with fruits. People who are already obese should not have too much of fruit sugars also. Don't have too many sweet fruits like bananas, for example, because you're already obese. Don't have too many mangoes, for example, right? Because people like them because they're sweet, right? Again, the sugar addiction and the dopamine coming in there. So we would be happier with citrus fruits if you're obese people. We're happy with berries, strawberry and blueberry and blackberries. We're happier with kiwi. Okay, remember, don't have too many fruits. Have more vegetables. Vegetables can never make you fat, but too many fruits can also make you fat, by the way, because many fruits have something called as fructose, more than glucose, and fructose gives you fatty liver because fructose cannot be used up by your system. You don't have an enzyme to use that up, so that gets deposited into the liver with fatty liver. Got that? Now remember to reduce your white rice as much as possible. Okay, it's a killer thing. Biscuits, all these are what? Refined carbs, right? Correct? Now, how do you do intermittent fasting? Start, for those who have not started it yet, start with 14 hours of fasting. So have an early dinner and a late breakfast. You start with 14 hours of fasting and 10 hours of eating time. In that 10 hours, maybe you can have 3 meals to start with. So a breakfast, a lunch and a dinner, but don't have anything in between. So whenever you have a lot of food, but don't have anything in between. So don't have frequent small meals. Have large meals, but 3 meals. And in those meals, try to have complex carbohydrates. In breakfast, I love oatmeals. See on the internet, you have so many nice overnight oatmeals. So you soak oatmeals in the night, put it in twice the amount of water, put a bit of apple cider vinegar in that water in the night, okay, and keep it overnight. In the morning, you drain that water off, okay, put it on the stove, 2 times the amount of water. So 1 bowl of oatmeal, so 2 bowls of water, just heat it up, and then that's it. That is a oatmeal. We can put a bit of cinnamon on that. So that is a wonderful, wonderful way to have a complex carbohydrate right in the morning, right? So that's a very nice breakfast option I can give you. Okay, I also like a lot of sauteed vegetables right in the breakfast. So you finish your, I have, by the way, sauteed vegetables every morning, and I'm not saying this just for the heck of it. It's something that's a part of my daily breakfast. I chop vegetables. Okay, I love to be in the kitchen for that. I chop all these vegetables. I have broccoli, I have cauliflower. All cruciferous vegetables, by the way, are excellent. All cruciferous vegetables. Let that be broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, you name it, it's beautiful for your gut, for your body. Okay, so I chop a lot of these. I always make sure I have mushrooms, okay, in that sauteed vegetable. It's really, really good. Try to have purple cabbage, because that's the purple is the anthocyanin part of it coming in there. Okay, you get anthocyanins from there, right? So that purple, so again that part comes in. I put a lot of greens. I made a video yesterday, you can see it on my YouTube channel, about something called as nitric oxide, which is a wonderful heart protective, artery protective chemical. Okay, get this? That is there in greens. That nitric oxide is there in greens. So all your greens. So what I do is I just chop off a bit of spinach leaves, maybe a bit of pok choy, some lettuce leaves, just chop it up and just sprinkle it on that salad. And it's so nourishing. I put a bit of soy sauce there, so that soy again is good. So don't be afraid of soy. Soy is very, very good for health. Okay, so a lot of myths are there with soy, that no, soy has estrogens. It's not. It's got phytoestrogens, which is protective against breast cancers. In fact, now people say it's got estrogen, so it will increase your breast cancer risk. In fact, it's opposite. In fact, so many studies have said that phytoestrogens are breast cancer protective. So put in some form of soy there. That gives you the protein component also. I like a lot of quinoa. Okay, you can make quinoa almost like a dalia. Okay, dalia by itself is very good. You can put veggies in that. That's buckwheat, right? So all these are breakfast options. Have I told you bread? No. Have I told you milk? No. Have I told you palak parotha? No. So try to go away from these refined carbs. You get what I'm saying on this, right? Now, we also like a few dry fruits to be put onto that oatmeal, for example. So that dry fruit could be something like a chopped almond or a walnut. So these are really a good, don't have other dry fruits. These are two dry fruits that we like, walnuts and almonds, again 3 or 4 maybe. Flax seeds and chia seeds should be the center part of your daily meal. You should at least have 2 teaspoons each. They give you something called as omega-3 fatty acids. Wonderful antioxidant behavior of omega-3 fatty acids will be achieved just by having these flax seeds. You can sprinkle that in any way. So that's a breakfast option, right? Then you have lunch and you have dinner. Concept remains the same, that about 20 to 30% will always be carbohydrates and the rest has to be vegetables. You can have any dal that you want to have. Lentils are wonderful. Have any amount of dal. It's going to be a great thing for you to have. I like a lot of veggies, as I said. Don't be afraid of fat. We are happy with healthy fats. Okay, I don't like trans fats. I don't like those refined fats which you would get in a biscuit, for example. That's refined oils. Those are really bad for health. In fact, any packaged food which says on the top low fat, never buy it, because that's, then if they have low fat, they put sugar then to compensate for the loss of fat, and that's worse, by the way. So never buy anything which says on the cover low fat. Don't buy anything which is heart healthy, fortified with vitamins. This is nonsense. It's all a way to sell a product. The way you decide whether to buy a product or not buy a product in a grocery store is the back of the container, not the front. And you should ideally know how to read a nutrition label at the back. Most of you will look at only the calories. That's not how I ever decide what to eat. Calorie is not the way to decide, because a Diet Coke has 0 calories, broccoli has 100 calories. Which is better? Broccoli is better, right? Because broccoli will give you something called as sulforaphane, which are so good as an anti-cancer activity. But what is going to be Diet Coke going to give you? Nothing. Just a dopamine hit in your brain. You get what I'm saying? So what I'm trying to say is, try to remember the way to buy stuff is from the back of the container, not the front. Try to have as less processed stuff as possible, right? If you are a meat eater, okay, see, I am personally health wise, I advocate a plant-based diet, but just in case you are somebody who still chooses to have an animal meat base, so avoid the processed meats. Avoid the smoking and the heating and all that culinary stuff which goes around, because that more processing which happens, it releases something called as polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, which are again carcinogenic, and nitrosamines. So the leaner the meat is and the more processing, so that kind of thing is what I want you to know. Okay, now, so there is nothing like a black and white thing that this is good and this is bad. It's almost relative. For example, if you don't have rice, it's the best, but if you want to have it, brown rice is better than white rice. That kind of concept is what I want you to understand. An occasional sweet is fine, okay, but if you make sweets and refined carbohydrates as a part of daily meal, then it's going to be a bad problem for you. So you start with 14-10, as I said. After that, when you feel okay with that, go to 16-8. 16 hours of fasting, 8 hours of feeding time. Go even ahead, 18 and 6. 18 hours of fasting, 6 hours of eating. And then 20 and 4. So 20 hours of fasting, 4 hours of eating. And then something called as OMAD, 1 meal a day. You might say that's silly. If you have 1 meal a day, will you not feel hunger? You don't. Because why? Because the body inside is releasing that fat from your system. Even if I'm thin right now, still I have a lot of fat in my system. All of us will have fat till the time we live. So all of us have stores. Don't worry about that. Hunger will gradually start to go down. Also remember that if you feel headache during intermittent fasting, it's always good to have lemon water with salt. Even in the fasting time, you can have that. Don't worry about salt. Again, it's a myth that has been propagated so much. The salt which is bad is what is there in your biscuits and your pasta and pizzas, which are there, which you have the refined foods, cheese, for example, the market cheese, a lot of salt. That is the trouble. Not the salt. You put a little bit of salt in your lemon water, that is not going to give you trouble. So if you feel headache, have salt. We are also okay with you having green tea and black coffee during the fasting time. So 4 things we allow in the fasting time. Okay, green tea, black coffee, and lemon water with salt. We're happy with all of that. And that is where in the fasting time you can have that. In the feeding time, as I said, you can have again these same stuff. You can continue in the feeding time also, plus the food itself will come in. But again, don't keep on nibbling throughout the day. Have designed meal times, designated meal time, that okay, I'll have 2 times in the day, and that is where you finish all your food that you want to take. In fact, when I eat, if I were to show you my image of the thali that I make, it's crazy. You would say, how can such a thin person eat this much amount of meal? I do, because when I eat so like a king. But when I don't eat, I just don't eat. Problem with most of you is going to be you eat and then you wait for 1 or 2 hours, then you feel hungry again, then a bit again you don't eat, again you eat, again you don't do it. That's not the way how we are designed. Human body was always designed to have big meals infrequently, and that's why we say we are hunters, right? We were hunters to begin with, and during hunting we always used to get infrequent meals only. You never got 2 hours meals when you were hunting, right? And that is how your body is designed. I can tell you a lot about hormones and leptins and ghrelins, and I can tell you about insulin, but I don't want to make this very technical. I want you to just absorb the concept and tell you the broad outlines of how intermittent fasting is done. And what I can tell you is, if you do intermittent fasting, if you lose your belly fat specifically, okay, so many females will say, my weight is not moving. Even though I do intermittent fasting, I stand on the weighing scale, it is not changing. Doesn't matter. Because trust me, if you're doing intermittent fasting, the fat is getting utilized from inside. It might not change on the weighing scale very fast. You might get stuck at some points of time, but just trust the process. Your weight will start losing again. Okay. You will not get disheartened, should not get disheartened, because there's something called as non-scale benefits. What do you mean non-weighing scale benefits? Energy levels, a feeling of happiness, a feeling of control over your life, a feeling that you're doing something good for your body, your exercise capacity increasing. All this is called as non-weighing scale benefits of intermittent fasting. We also have a lot of anti-inflammatory benefits of intermittent fasting. In fact, now rheumatoid arthritis, but such a common form of arthritis, is now getting benefited with intermittent fasting. Asthma is getting benefited. Your heart vessels open up. Your gut bacteria improves with intermittent fasting. Can you measure that on a weighing scale? You can't. So please don't go into that wrong thought process that, oh, if my weighing scale does not show me 100 grams of weight loss, that means it's a waste. It's not a waste. Now, there is something called as autophagy, by the way. And I'll encourage all people who are doctors here to search for intermittent fasting and autophagy. In fact, a Nobel Prize was given for autophagy. Autophagy means you eat your own tissues. It might sound gross, but yes, your body has to eat itself also. You know why? We have so many dead tissues inside the system. So many bad tissues like cancer cells also. Maybe they are sprouting up right now as I'm speaking. If I'm doing intermittent fasting, I have a lot of this self-eating very well. So I eat the bad. My immune system eats the bad things and keeps me healthy. It's like a garbage truck which is sweeping off all the bad debris inside. So intermittent fasting is going to give you good autophagy, which removes all these bad, diseased tissues inside, so you don't fall sick very easily. There's a myth also that intermittent fasting people cannot develop muscle. That's a myth. Okay, I have developed so much of muscle. I'm wearing a shirt so I can't show you, but I have decent muscles. Okay, you know why? Every bodybuilder wants what? Lowering of fat and increasing of muscle. So what do? With intermittent fasting, you reduce your fat drastically. Is that not what a bodybuilder wants also? And then you boost up the muscle with what? Your muscle training exercises. Having a good protein diet. In fact, intermittent fasting releases a hormone called as growth hormone. Okay, so more intermittent fasting you do, the more growth hormone you will have. Growth hormone means what? It grows something. What does it grow? Muscles. In fact, it increases the growth hormone stimulation of your muscles. So in fact, it's good for skeletal muscles also. In fact, I have not had any problem with losing my muscle with intermittent fasting. I have not had that problem ever. Okay. Now, if you ask me what to take instead of animal milk, we are happy with milk. We're just not happy with animal milk. We're happy with soy milk. We're happy with almond milk, coconut milk. We're having other forms of milk we are fine with. So start developing a taste. For example, after I do a lot of strength training exercises, a lot of people used to tell me that you should have whey protein. I said, that's nonsense. You know what I have? I have soy milk protein, which is equal. I put peanut butter into that. I make my own shake, by the way, which is a post-workout shake where I put a soy milk, I put peanut butter. I have so much of proteins right from that. I put a bit of cocoa powder in that. It gives me a nice taste as well. And then you don't need whey protein. Okay, ideally you should just go for whole foods. Don't go into powders also. That's again a wrong concept is happening. You're having a lot of powder based nutrition. That's not how you should do. Pediasure being given to so many children. How bad is that? Okay, Bonvita is being put into milk. I mean, that's crazy. Milk makes them fat. Bonvita has sugars. Obviously the baby is plumpy. You feel the baby is healthy. Baby is not healthy. The baby is sick. Fat is sick. People who are fat are sick. Let's be very clear. 80% of obese people are sick. It's a different one that 20% of obese people are not sick, but at least 80% are sick. And let's assume you are thin. Are you healthy? Not necessarily. 40% of thin people are having fatty liver inside, are having abdominal fat inside. So don't think if you're thin, you should not be doing intermittent fasting because you want to remove still the fat inside. So there's something called as TOFI, T-O-F-I, thin outside, fat inside. TOFI. So many heart attack people are thin. And when you see them, their triglycerides are high, HDL is low. They have fatty liver. They have a borderline HbA1c. So thin people can also be abnormally unhealthy. So how do you know whether you're healthy or unhealthy? I told you those 5 things in the beginning of this session where you can monitor how much fat you have inside. Now there's a big problem with childhood obesity. So many mothers are saying my child is becoming fat. And you know how you know, by the way, whether you have a lot of bad fat inside? If your neck is starting to become a bit black from here, okay, you should look at that yourself and in your spouse and in your kids. If your neck folds are becoming black, you have a bit of black in the armpits, okay, if you have a bit of black on the sides of your face, if you're getting what is called as skin tags, small tags, that means you're already unhealthy. Simple. That means you already have fatty liver. That means you already have something called as insulin resistance. Okay, so already at a higher chance of getting diabetes. So when you do intermittent fasting, specifically your blackness of this neck will go because you will lose weight. So many females who have PCOD, polycystic ovary disease, are struggling to lose weight and they have infertility and abnormal menses. They should do intermittent fasting. It's one of the best things to do for a PCOD female. Their fertility will improve. I have 2 females on my program right now who were PCOD people, females. They were not able to conceive. They were told IVF. I put them in intermittent fasting. They lost such a beautiful amount of weight. And now I am happy to say both of them have conceived. And they were so happy that without doing anything, just by weight loss, which they were not able to get by going to the gym. By the way, that's again a myth. People think that, okay, gym is and exercise is the way to lose weight. Exercise is not the way to lose weight. Exercise is not a good weight loss strategy. Diet changes is the best way to lose weight. You get what I'm saying? So it's not because the gyms have closed, that's why the people became obese in the COVID pandemic. No. Gyms got closed, but you started eating nonsense. You started having comfort foods. Okay? You started having stuff in the house which were fried, which were wrong, which were having comfort, and you started becoming happier with that because there was stress outside. So you wanted to relieve that with your food. So that stress eating made you fat, not the loss of the gym. Right? Now, let me just also keep on taking questions. You can keep on typing your questions, please. Okay. How can I get balanced food in a 4-hour eating window? See, when we say 24, am I saying that you're going to do that for the rest of your life? No. It's only going to be done for people who are very obese, who already have so much of stuff inside. So they have no issues with a balanced diet. The problem is they have had an unbalanced diet for so long. 3 months and 6 months of having this is not going to change stuff. If you're having a very extreme, like 1 meal in a day, then I recommend some multivitamins and multi-mineral tablets to be taken. But otherwise, it doesn't really matter because they already have a lot of stuff inside. Once they lose weight, then they can reduce their intermittent fasting. They can then go to a 14-10 regimen. For example, right now, if you ask me, I'm a BMI of 21. I take 3 meals in a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Have I gained my weight back? No, not at all. Because I maintain a low refined carbohydrate diet. I eat healthy. So I don't get back the weight. Okay. Let me check a few questions. Is L-carnitine recommended? Raki, I would recommend, I think you're asking for exercise. L-carnitine is one of those supplements which are touted as those good things to be taken before exercise and, to build your exercise capacity. I did a video yesterday, which I'm again encouraging you to go to. One of the highest evidences of a pre-exercise supplement is beetroot juice. Imagine, not something which is a fancy supplement tablet like arginine or L-carnitine. Beetroot juice is one of the strongest stimulators of nitric oxide. So when nitric oxide is released, your blood vessels to the muscles are increasing in their width. So there's more blood going into the muscles and then your exercise capacity is boosted. Caffeine again is a good stimulator prior to exercise. So I would not really go to too many of these supplements. For example, I'm against this whey powder craze which is going around, and people take tons and tons of boiled chicken. Now that's crazy. That's not how food is supposed to be thought of. Food is not only proteins. Okay, so don't think of animal as only a protein source. Unfortunately, with an animal protein source, you get a lot of bad things coupled with that protein, which again I told in the yesterday's video, something called as TMAO. Okay, TMAO is a very bad thing for your heart. Okay, so a lot of processed meats have this TMAO, something called as endotoxins, something called as heterocyclic amines. A lot of these issues with what is around that protein is also going to be something which I decide, and that's how I look at animal proteins as inferior. Even though the protein content is more, The surrounding things make it more inferior in my books, at least. And science again has proven that as well. Okay, right. Have you then yes, is berberine helpful in insulin resistance and lowering? Swaroop, again, I don't look at one molecule as too powerful in reducing insulin resistance. I don't look at berberine, for example. I look at the entire constellation of benefits of intermittent fasting. You don't have to have one specific thing to reduce insulin resistance. You just have to reduce, according to whatever concept I told you, in the feeding time, have what I just told you, and that should be enough to eradicate insulin resistance from your system. Okay. Riddhi, many YouTube videos say that in between of IF, one can have buttermilk of tomato or tomato. See, in the feeding time, I told you can have 2 meals. Let's assume you have lunch and dinner, but in the evening, let's say you feel a bit, you feel hungry. Then we advise a bit of buttermilk to be had or a bit of tomato to be had, but in the feeding time, not in the fasting time, just to reduce that intense urge of snacking at that time. Green coffee is again good. Green coffee is good. I'm happy with green coffee as well. If I break my fast with lemon water and chia seeds or cucumber, coriander, I get severe headache. Why is that? What can be done? See, what happens is a lot of that headache happens because you're losing a lot of electrolytes and salt. So I would don't have only lemon water, have salt. The problem is you're not having salt. So the loss of salt gives you headache. So if you have lemon water with salt, then the headache will go. Trust me on that. Can we break our fast with sattu in buttermilk? Yes, you can break your fast with sattu, buttermilk. Yes. What to do with leg pains? Leg pains often happen if you do a lot of IF, especially because of magnesium issues. So if you have magnesium containing tablets, so people, in fact, magnesium glycinate tablet is available online also, that if you do a lot of intermittent fasting, you can have a lot of magnesium issues sometimes, and then you can have that with magnesium supplements. You can supplement that. Okay. Please, about other vegetables that are good for health. Debashish, I'll tell you a mnemonic, a way to remember the good vegetables, something called a G-bombs. GBOMBS. G is greens, all sorts of greens. Let that be arugula, lettuce, parsley, celery, broccoli, you name it, and any green, spinach, any green is good. The next B stands for broccoli and beans. Broccoli and all sorts of beans, green beans, rajma, chana, lobia, everything is fine. O is onions. M is mushrooms. B is berries. And the last S is seeds, chia seeds, flax seeds, hemp seeds, sunflower seeds. So G-bombs is just a very simple way of remembering vegetables, which are the highest vegetable sources for health. For blood pressure patient, okay. Okay, I feel hungry in the evening hours. Is it okay? Yes. You can adjust your fasting time to whatever suits you. Some people like breakfast and lunch to be taken and to skip dinner. Some people skip breakfast and have lunch and dinner. I am fine with anything that you decide which works for you. See, for everyone, the body is different and everybody will react differently. But what I can tell you is intermittent fasting is one of the most scientific ways of reducing weight. It's not a fad. It's not a fad. It's scientifically proven. And for all doctors on this forum, I encourage you to see a very big respected medical journal called as New England Journal of Medicine, December 2019 issue. In the review article, no less, review article, saying everything about intermittent fasting and coming to the conclusion that it's one of the best things you can do to modify your health. You would get less heart disease if you do intermittent fasting. Your chance of diabetes are going to drastically go down. Okay, heart attacks going down, paralysis and strokes going down, less chance of Alzheimer's disease where you lose all memory, less chance of getting polycystic ovary disease. Acne will not again be so much in females who do intermittent fasting. Your hair will be better, your skin will be better, you're not having acne. What else would you want? Would any cosmetic be able to give you that? No. If you're healthy from inside, your skin glows automatically from outside. Get this? Right. So I hope I have clarified all your questions, and I've been able to give you almost an uninterrupted and unscripted lecture. I didn't, when I was saying there's nothing in front of me which tells me that this is the point to be covered. I just wanted to cover everything that comes to my mind. And this is how we do this Facebook Lives, not in a formatted session, but in a non-formatted casual talk sessions. It's almost like someone talking to you about outside. So it gives it a nice informal kind of a setting, right? So with this, I guess I finished all your questions. And if with your permission, then I would want to close down this session. I want you to write to me whether you felt this session helped you, whether it gave you some perspective of what intermittent fasting is all about. Okay, I would love your feedback on what we did today. I wanted to do some different things, especially in this COVID helplessness that we feel. The power is in nutrition, and it's actually one of my missions in life now. And I have a tagline which I formulated: changing the world 1 kilo at a time. Okay, so this is my way of changing the world, telling people that the power of nutrition helps them live a fruitful, wonderful life. You want to be a kick-ass old person, right? You don't want to be an old person with arthritic knees and struggling to breathe and struggling to walk. You want to be a kick-ass 100-year-old? Maintain your weight and do intermittent fasting. So thank you very much. We would close this with your permission. Goodbye, God bless, and I'm there on the Facebook group. You can keep on tagging me for questions. I will keep on coming on with videos about nutrition. And as a doctor, I can tell you that when I say something, I say it with a lot of conviction and with a lot of science. So I don't have any hidden agendas within me that I'm doing this commercially. No, I'm not. This just is something that I love to do. I'm doing this just to change how people look at nutrition. Thank you very much.